what I wanted to talk about today, you see, it is the new year, and oftentimes during the new year we talk about resolutions, don't we? Anybody do resolutions? Okay, I gave up on resolutions. You know why? They make me feel bad about myself. I will have a plan about doing something, and then I won't do it, and then I'll just feel guilty. So I've decided that my resolution is not to feel guilty this year, so therefore I'm not doing any resolutions, right? That's how I think most people deal with resolutions, or somebody like me claiming that people need resolutions, right? But here's the thing that I've discovered about myself, because even though I might not have resolutions, here's what I do have. I do have intentions, right? We all have intentions, maybe with how we want the new year to go, maybe how we want the week to go, how we want tomorrow to go. We might have some intentions later on for the lunch we have planned, right? We all have intentions rather than maybe some resolutions. And I have a friend actually that helped me to understand things when I was talking about, resolutions and making me feel a little bit guilty. And this person actually made a suggestion that actually made things a little bit more doable. So I want to make some of that same suggestion here, and I want to say this, because oftentimes we just add on to our life, and that's why resolutions really don't work, right? We take whatever is going on in our life and we try to add on to it with these resolutions. But what if, and this person helped me to think about things a little bit differently, what if we actually aligned with rather than added to? You see, as an adult, the more you grow up, the more you get older, the more you decide that you don't really want to change anything about your life. That's just kind of how it is, right? You have a rut that you're in, or you have a certain path, you have a certain way that you're going to go. Adults don't like to add things to their life. We like to add things to kids' lives, all right? But we don't like to add things to our own lives in particular. So what if we viewed it this way? To align with rather than to add to. So I've actually never said this. I don't think I've ever said this publicly because I didn't want the accountability. But I actually have an intention this year to write more. So just for an example, I want to write more, and I'm actually saying it out loud so you can hold me accountable, okay? And I want to write more. And so this person challenged me, rather than to actually stop doing something else entirely, rather than to just quit your job entirely and become a writer, right? That would be stupid. What if we started to align what you're currently doing and actually bring in some writing? Now, I'm a pastor, so I can do some of those things, right? So what if we actually align with rather than add to? Now, I have a specific goal here this morning, and I have an intention for you. So if you brought in something else, all right, if you have some other ideas about some resolutions, that's great. But here's what my intention is. And I realize it's a little bit pie in the sky, it's a little bit out there, and I often say it because I actually believe it. Like, I actually want everyone to want to follow Jesus. Like, sometimes I don't know why people don't want to follow Jesus when they discover who Jesus is, right? I understand why people walk away from church. I understand why people walk away from other Christians, but what I don't understand is why people might want to walk away from Jesus. You see, I believe that everybody should want to follow Jesus. And we say this oftentimes around here. There's a phrase that I like to say that I adapted actually from another phrase because I didn't like that phrase. And in a true Eric Fuller way, I had to change it to fit me. Following Jesus won't necessarily make your life better. We say it often. Following Jesus won't necessarily make your life better, but it will make you better at life. You see, everybody should want to follow Jesus. And oftentimes we get into church circles like this, or you find other Christians, and they tell you about the faith, right? Or they tell you to just have faith, that all your events in life, that if you just have enough faith, circumstances will just go the way that you want them to. That is not the gospel message. You see, the gospel message actually, when Jesus was on this earth, he had disciples, followers. These followers would go to their deaths for Jesus, claiming that they saw, everybody dies, or a lot of people die for what they believe in. They died for what they claimed they saw. And they would actually go to their deaths proclaiming the fact that Jesus came back. So I believe that everybody should want to follow Jesus. And that doesn't necessarily make your life better, but I'm telling you, it will in fact make you better at life. And so oftentimes when I kind of schedule things out for the year, we've actually been in the book of Matthew, which is actually Matthew's story of following Jesus. And we actually have 4 different accounts of people following Jesus and then writing down those accounts. We have Matthew, we have the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So we've actually been following Matthew. And I actually set this Sunday up to go, okay, there's probably going to be something that I've missed I want to come back to, okay? So I'm just going to have a blank Sunday, which is such a dangerous thing for my ADD brain to do, okay? Because I wanted to talk about several different things, but what I had found is if we go back to the beginning of all of this, you see, we've been talking about these followers of Jesus and how Jesus had this idea for a kingdom, a way of living that he was inviting all of his followers into. You see, we kind of glossed over the fact that he actually specifically called out several of his followers in kind of a miraculous sort of a way. So I want to actually go back to, if this was like a movie over the past several months, to kind of a prequel, okay, of the beginning of all of this when Jesus actually invites some of his first disciples to come and follow him. And I want to go to Matthew, but then I want to come back with a little bit more detail into Luke, because Luke gives us a little bit more detail because he writes for a specific purpose. So here's what Matthew has to say when it comes to a man named Peter actually coming to follow him. One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, also called Peter. So we got Peter, if this was the prequel, kind of going backwards, okay? Oh, there's younger Peter, not that much younger, maybe, a year or 2 younger. Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fish for the living. So here's some fishermen, right? And they were actually fishing, throwing a net in the water. And here's the thing about Jesus that we often miss, because rabbis during that time, there were specific people that wanted to follow rabbis. And so students would come to rabbis and actually ask if they could follow that rabbi. It was very rare. Actually, I don't even know if it actually happened. There's rarely ever a case where a rabbi would go to a student. And so at this point, Jesus is kind of looking around, and he's searching for the sinners, which would be so weird, okay? Because the rabbis would choose the best of the best. They would kind of look around and go, oh, that you can follow me. You're a great student. Come follow me, right? Or the student would look at the rabbi and question if they could follow that person, and then the rabbi could decide if that person was worthy enough to follow them. But here's Jesus. I'm telling you, this is huge. Jesus is searching. He's walking along the shore, looking for fishermen. So these fishermen were told that they were not good enough to follow a specific rabbi, so they kind of faulted to the family business of fishing. That's all they could do. And here's Jesus searching for the sinners, the outcasts, the ordinary, the forgotten, the overlooked, and those that just didn't seem to fit. And so Jesus called out to them, this is kind of weird to us. This was probably weird back then as well. See, Jesus called out to them, come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. Now, this is weird, okay? Can you imagine a rabbi just at the shore, you're kind of cleaning your nets. Hey, you're a great fisherman, but I'm going to show you how to fish for people. Come follow me. Like that. And then they left their nets at once and followed him. Like, it seems like we're missing a little bit of a detail right there, right? Where all of a sudden they would just drop the family business and all of a sudden just start following Jesus at that moment. And a little farther up the shore, he saw 2 brothers, James and John, which were disciples or followers of Jesus. James and John, so picture a little bit younger, James and John, okay, sitting in a boat with their father, Zebedee, repairing their nets. And he called them to come too. And they immediately followed him. Now, I believe that this is an extremely weird detail if you thought that other part was weird, okay? Leaving the boat and their father behind. Can you just picture this, where they just kind of get up and the father's like, oh, you dang kids, get back here. We're in the fishing business. And they're like, sorry, Dad, we're out of here, And this is kind of a weird scene that Matthew kind of gives us. Now, Matthew's purpose was basically to talk to other Jewish people and show them who the Messiah was. And so if you've kind of seen this in a movie, this kind of particular scene, it's almost like they robotically like stand up, right, and then start to follow Jesus. And you're like, this is kind of a weird scene. See, this is why I am so glad we have other gospel stories to kind of fill in the gap. You see, where Matthew's goal was to get Jewish people to understand who the Messiah was, Luke actually came in. So Luke came in as an investigative reporter to try to figure out, this was written more towards people like us, to try to figure out if these claims of Jesus were actually true. And so just to kind of skip ahead a little bit, I want to talk about Luke, because oftentimes when something like this is preached, okay, and I promise you it's going to sound like I'm making fun. I'm not making fun. I'm just going to say that it is incomplete. Oftentimes when this has been preached, and I've heard it preached, the pastor gets up, right, and he says something like this: you should blindly surrender all as they did, because they are our examples, and they dropped their nets, and they left their dad behind, and they decided to follow Jesus, and they gave up everything to follow Jesus. And oftentimes, that could be coupled with a song, I surrender all, right? And then you have people coming forward, and you have this altar call, and again, that could be a very meaningful experience. But I'm telling you, look at me. It is absolutely incomplete, this kind of experience. That might have been a great experience for you. I'm not saying that it wasn't a great experience for you. It happened in my life as well. But oftentimes, we place the onus on that particular event in time, not realizing that Jesus at multiple times would ask these disciples to continue to follow him. You see, at what point do you actually give up everything to follow Jesus? My son just went off he's a freshman at a Christian college, and he was actually writing this paper, and you would expect this to happen in a pastor's house, right, where we start to talk about some theological, nuances. And he was actually writing this paper where the professor actually believes maybe something a little bit different than he had been taught, although it's very, cohesive. And that they talked about this idea of making Jesus the Lord of everything, which I absolutely believe. But then he asked me this question, and I thought that was such a good question, and it was actually something that I've been teaching him his entire life. Like, at what point do you actually give up everything to follow Jesus? See, that's a question that I want to come back and answer, because I want to talk about Luke at this point. So Luke writes about this story, but he gives us more detail than actually Matthew did, because he's actually searching for if this actually happened. So he's giving us the detail. So one day as Jesus was preaching on the shore of Galilee, which is a little bit different than Matthew's story, right? Jesus was preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. Great crowds pressed in on him to listen to the word of God. Now, some people push against this and go, well, it couldn't be true then, because Matthew and Luke don't match up perfectly. Well, if they matched up perfectly, we would probably know that they made it up. Okay? Because every single event, if we had an event right now and people asked us what happened at that event, you know who would have a different story? You would have a different story. You would have a different story. I would have a different story, because we would all see things a little bit differently. This actually substantiates the story of Jesus. And he noticed 2 empty boats on the water's edge. So Jesus is preaching, right? And the crowds are starting to press in. So he starts to create the way where they can actually hear him a little bit better. So he gets to the water's edge. For the fishermen had left these 2 boats, and they were washing their nets. So if you can kind of picture Peter off in the distance, maybe just a little bit, right? Or in the boat, actually washing his nets. Here comes the rabbi stepping into the boat and say, okay, I'm going to claim your boat for a little bit, and turn around, and he's actually preaching to the crowd. Now, stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it into the water so that he could create a wave where everybody would hear. So he sat in the boat, and he taught the crowds from there. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, now go out where it is deeper. So he finishes his message, okay? And the crowds are there, and then he maybe closes in prayer, all right? And then they start to disperse a little bit, and then he turns over to Peter and says, hey, let's go fishing. I mean, we're in a fishing boat, right? So let's just go, just us. Let's just go out and fish. Now go out to where it is deeper and let down your nets to catch some fish. Now, this would have been a strange request because this was at the end of the day. How many fishermen we have in here, or fisher people? Is that more appropriate? I don't know. Okay, nobody. Awesome. Okay, I'm not a fisher person either. Okay, but I do know that if you get out a little bit earlier, especially in this time frame, right, you can actually probably catch more fish. And so to ask them, as the day had been going on, as they were cleaning their nets, they were done with their day. To ask them to go out would be completely ridiculous. So Simon Peter answered and he said, Master, which is a strange way to actually address Jesus. But there's some respect to Jesus at this point. So he just, hey, Master, Rabbi, okay, Master. You're kind of in this rabbi sort of a thing, right? I do the fishing, okay? Like, why don't you trust me with this fishing thing? You do your rabbi thing. I'm a fisherman, okay? Simon replied, we worked all last night and we didn't catch a thing. Did you not see us cleaning our nets, right? I know that rabbis maybe, that whole fishing thing, but we were cleaning our nets because we were done for the day. But here's the thing. He says, but, what's that next phrase? If you say so. I have this information, okay, Master, but if you say so, I will let the nets down again. You see, there's something important that we often miss here. You see, he is actually willing to say yes to what Jesus would have him do next. He is willing to say yes to what Jesus would have him do next. So, and at this time when they put their nets down, okay, they decide to go out fishing, it must have happened immediately, okay? At this time, their nets were so full of fish that they began to tear. A shout for help brought their partners. Now, these partners, we're about to find out, okay, are people that we know as well. They shouted for help and brought their partners in from the other boat. And soon, both boats were filled with fish and on the verge of sinking. Now, how would you respond? Again, when we kind of see this in Christian circles, it's like, oh my gosh, how exciting is this? Look how much fish, right? Look how much fish they are actually pulling in. Man, at this point, they probably were so excited, and they sold all of their fish, and all were rich, and they partied into the sunset, dancing the Jesus dance, leading to a new country line dance that swept the nation. I'm dumb, sorry. That's not there. Okay, maybe TikTok dance, is that, maybe that was it, right? That's not what happened. As soon as this happened and Peter had a chance to process, when Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus. Now the phrase changes. Oh, Lord. All of a sudden, that respect level that he might have had, master rabbi, all of a sudden he realized that something was different about Jesus because of this event that just had happened, right? Oh, Lord. Please leave me alone. Please leave me. I'm such a sinful man. Like, even the fact that I doubted, right, that we should go out fishing, but yet I kind of pretended to respect you enough to just drop my nets out there, right? I am such a sinful man. Please leave me. Like, this is a completely different experience oftentimes. than the Jesus story that we're presented. It's even a little bit different, it gives us more detail than Matthew's version. "O Lord, please leave me, for I am a sinful man." I mean, I picture him kind of backing up going, "Who are you?" Like, you don't realize that when I didn't catch any fish, like that there was a lot of certain words, okay, that somebody like you should not be hearing, right? "I am a sinful man. Depart from me." Now, why would he do that? For he was so awestruck by the number of fish that they had caught, as were the others with him, his partners. Now we're clued into who his partners were. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, and they were also amazed. You see, why would he push away from Jesus and call him Lord, but at the same time, "Oh my gosh, you need to be separate from me"? He didn't realize that Jesus was looking for the sinners, the outcasts, the ordinary, the forgotten, the overlooked, and those that just didn't seem to fit. Like, if you're here right now and you think that you fit with Jesus and like you're such a religious person and you keep the law and you read the Bible every single day, I don't think that you've discovered Jesus as Lord. Because you believe that Jesus is after the righteous, that Jesus is after those, right, that they know what to do in any sort of situation. But Jesus is after the ordinary, the sinners, those that might be outcasts. And so Jesus replied to Simon, "All right, I'll get out of here. That's cool." What's that say there? Jesus replied to Simon. Read it with me. "Don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people." Did he know what fishing for people meant at that point? Probably not. But he had just experienced this event. And maybe he had this question: what kind of people would Jesus have him fish for? If Jesus was after the outcasts, the sinners, those that just didn't seem to fit, he probably didn't understand what it meant to fish for people. But he's starting to understand who Jesus is at this point. Which just reminds us that I often forget that Jesus was looking for the sinners, the outcasts, the ordinary, the forgotten, the overlooked, and those that just didn't seem to fit. I've shared parts of this story, but I never know exactly what to share. But oftentimes I've said from the stage that I've wanted to walk away from all of this. At certain points in my life, there have been times where I'm like, okay, I'm not sure that I want to do this any longer. And it might be because of religious people, right? It's funny that the more complaints you kind of hear from people, you hear more so from religious people, from those that are the outcasts and the sinners and those alike. So oftentimes it's like, man, there are certain times when I want to walk away from all of this. I've been hurt by church. I've been hurt by church people. I've actually had a few different opportunities, and these are some of the details where I often gloss over because I'm not sure exactly what to share. But my first church experience, let me just tell you, it was an abusive experience where somebody was my friend actually became the pastor, and I became the youth pastor, and I'd been working with him in youth ministry. He stopped talking to me when he became the pastor. And I was like, oh, is this how it's supposed to be? Like the pastor is kind of this person and doesn't talk to us lowly youth pastors? And I ended up very hurt by that entire experience. I'm telling you, it would be weird oftentimes. He'd come in and talk to my wife, who also worked at the church, but he wouldn't even acknowledge me. I don't know. I don't know what the purpose was in all that, but he decided to treat me that way, and that had me wanting to walk away. There was another experience where I was working at a church for a very long time, and they decided that they could no longer afford that position. And so even though I was there for a very long time, and I thought that I built these relationships with people, as soon as they let me go, I was dead to them. I didn't get it. I didn't understand that, and maybe that wasn't true, but that's just how I felt in that experience. It was the weirdest experience that I've ever experienced. If people claim to know Jesus, but yet treat people this way, maybe we should all walk away from all of this, right? And even with that, to find some things that weren't exactly true as I kept going, I had forgotten, for me, that Jesus is looking for the sinners, the outcasts, those that just don't seem to fit. That calling is for every single one of us. So the good news is this: if you consider yourself an outcast, if you consider the fact that you've been hurt by the church and church people, and who wants to do this any longer, Jesus is going, no. Come on back. Because I am looking for the outcasts and the sinners. And maybe if you've walked away from all of this and you've walked away from church, I'm telling you, you have walked away too quickly. Because Jesus is calling us towards something better. And as soon as they landed with all these fish, they left everything. Of course they did, right? What other choice do they have? When presented with that much evidence that's right in front of their face, and they left everything and followed Jesus. And so we kind of follow up this with okay, Eric, if I had that kind of a miracle, okay? If I had that kind of a miracle, then I would follow Jesus as well. But where's this miracle for me? You see, oftentimes we present Christianity in such a way that would just have faith, right? But that was not presented to Peter. That was not presented to Andrew. That was not presented to John, right? Because at the very beginning of all of this, Jesus declared who he was. Oftentimes those miracles pointed to how the world should be. And so they were actually able to see and be a part of some of those things. And if I just had a miracle like that, then I would follow Jesus too. And so if you've ever heard people say, just have faith, okay? This is not the faith that we're talking about that is actually a part of Christianity. Because Christianity should be an informed, evidence-based faith. This idea of just have faith. Hey, it'll all work out. Just have enough faith. If you have a little bit more faith there, buddy, then things will work out for you. I don't know where we get that, but that is not the gospel of Jesus, because this is not an uninformed, baseless faith. Let me explain it this way, okay? And I don't know if I can explain this fully, and sometimes this gets me into a little bit of trouble, okay? But I'm going to try to explain it this way. I don't have a good faith in the idea of marriage, okay? If you look around and you maybe have the same thoughts about marriage, half the marriages end in divorce. I don't know if that's true or not, but you've definitely experienced something in you to go, does marriage actually work, right? But here's the thing. I don't have faith in the idea of marriage. I have faith in my wife because she is a person, and we had an event when we got married. There's evidence to the fact that I am married because people showed up to an event where I committed to a person. I have faith in my wife. I don't have faith in the idea of marriage. People that come to me and say, oh yeah, I just believe in marriage and we're just going to stay together. And I go, hey, okay, that's awesome that you believe in marriage. That's cool. Turn a little bit. Do you believe in her? Okay, awesome. Why don't you actually focus on her rather than just focus on your marriage, right? Because the evidence of your marriage is maybe right in front of you. And that might be something that is very difficult for us to talk about. Again, this is just an example. See, we hope for an idea. But I put my faith in a person oftentimes based on an event. And so what would Peter have to say about this if we're like, hey, we just need a miracle, right? We are living on the other side of this. And oftentimes, again, this is rarely ever talked about because people like me say, just have faith. Did you know that our faith is actually based on the evidence of the resurrection? That Paul would actually come into play later. Paul, an apostle, would say that we should give this all up if the resurrection had not happened. So this idea of just have faith, into this idea, that might be a part of it at certain times, but that is definitely not it. Our faith is based on the evidence of the resurrection of Jesus. And for some of us, we've walked away a little bit too quickly because maybe we need to look into the evidence, because if this actually happens, look at me, that changes everything. You're looking for a miracle? Look for it. I dare you. Start looking at the evidence. Start reading the stories. Start looking at the YouTube, all right? The YouTube. I just sounded so old, all right? Because oftentimes what we mean by that, what we mean by this, this idea of I just need a miracle, what we mean by that is if my life would go the way that I wanted to, then I would follow you, Jesus. But let me tell you, that is not the good news of the gospel. The good news is actually one that alleviates burden, not adds to it. Jesus is in the business of alleviating burdens consistently. As a matter of fact, that word gospel is used oftentimes in a religious case, but really what that word meant was just good news. You could be in a battle, okay? And then you'd send somebody forward to let people know that they were free. And that would be known as the gospel. So we were just in a battle and you'd send them back to the people and go, we're free. The good news is we are free. And so Jesus comes in with a brand new kind of gospel that speaks of freedom and losing out all of our burdens. And if you're a good Bible student, you might come back with the idea that, well, wait a minute, Eric, I know that Jesus actually placed some burdens on people. He actually said that we should take up our cross and follow him, right? I think that's a pretty big burden. You are absolutely correct. You follow the breadcrumbs long enough, what Jesus is teaching you is to die to self, which actually leads to greater freedom. The gospel alleviates the burdens. It does not add to them. So oftentimes we say this again with this idea. You want him to center, you want Jesus to center in on your supposed good news. God, I need to be richer. I need to be healthy. And why can't I have a job, right? You want him in on your good news. And he invites you to your good news. I am the king. In this scenario, you are the king. I am the king. And Jesus is the servant. How did he change from master to, oh my gosh, you're my Lord. So Jesus invites us and he says, I am Lord, but do not be afraid. Follow me and I will make you fish for people. Fish for people, I'm not even concerned with that, right? Well, wait a minute. Maybe you haven't figured out yet that Jesus is in fact Lord of your life. And besides, do you know what it means to follow? We make this so complicated. Prepare for your mind to be blown. It means to take the next step. Whoa, right? Which means, at what point do I actually give up everything to follow Jesus? Because I don't know about you. I've been following Jesus for, I can't do the math, a long time now. The more I follow Jesus, the more I have moments of, Lord, depart from me. I am a sinful man. I didn't even realize the sin was in me. Yet I continually hear his beck and call to do not be afraid. I didn't come so you can follow a bunch of corrupt church leaders. I came so that you would follow me. So look at me. How do you know? How do you know? At what point? It's when you take the next step. So maybe it's time to consider taking that next step. You think you've given all of yourself to Jesus? I don't mean to laugh. I don't mean to poke fun. Perhaps you don't know Jesus well enough. It's time to get to know Jesus a little bit more, because his desire for his disciples is to now fish for people. And if we're bringing back in the idea that I just started us off with, here's what I might say. Because we all want to just add Jesus in on what we're doing, right? I got my job, but then I got my church stuff, okay? I got my church people that I hang out with, and then I got those other people that I hang out with, the sinners and the, whatever, right? Align with Jesus rather than to add him to your life. Look at me. Is he Lord? There's no altar call today, okay? This is between you and God. How do you know that he's Lord of your life? When you take the next step that's placed before you. And I hate, in all honesty, I just want to leave it there, because I don't want you to come back with what I'm going to talk about next here and go, oh, he was just giving a commercial for what One Love is doing. So if you hear that in the next 5 minutes, drown that out, okay? Because my goal, my hope, okay, is to bring us in on the fact that Jesus calls us to fish for people. And if he's calling us to fish for people, who's he after? The outcasts, the sinners, and those that don't seem to fit. So for a while, this is why we've been talking about this. You see, we want to be the church for the city. I am far less concerned, test me on it, I'm far less concerned with bringing Christians back to the church. I'm far more concerned in getting the Christians out into the world, okay, into the church as the church building. I'm far more concerned with us being the church, because we don't know what 2022 has in store for us, right? But yet we know that Jesus consistently calls us to be fishers of people. And so we want to do this in 3 different ways. We want to be helpful. And I realize as we're trying to discuss these things, I don't think I've discussed a lot of these things well enough, because we want to be helpful in our community. We want to serve our community. It is bringing organizations, because we found out a couple of years ago that our people would get behind organizations that were doing great things in our community. It's not our job to start all of those things. It's our job to find those people that are killing it in our community, to partner with them. And so this past year, it was like we've partnered with Every Child, and it was like, can we partner with some more organizations that are actually doing good in our community? And so we are actually focused about 3 months or so on different organizations, and we will be for the next at least year, if not further. Okay, so we just partnered with the Heartfelt House. Our partnership with the Heartfelt House is not ending. If you want more information about the Heartfelt House, man, this is where we need to do better, because we want you serving with the Heartfelt House. But we're about to start talking about the 15th night, and we're bringing in these ideas because you have a certain propensity where maybe you want more information so that you can actually go minister to people that they are ministering to. It's not us starting that organization. It's us partnering with what might be going on in our community. So we're inviting you to be helpful. We're inviting you to be helpful here. Like, it has been so difficult this past couple of years to get people to commit to anything. And I'm telling you, like, even just greeting at the door to make sure that it can be an action where you are actually fishing for people. Right? So we need people like greeting just at the door, because it's been so difficult for people to commit to anything. But there's an easy way that you can start to fish for people in doing that, by creating welcoming environments. To be generous, I already talked about this. You brought in almost $16,000 over the past couple of months during a time where you shouldn't be giving. You got Christmas gifts to get, right? But yet you brought in a substantial amount of money. Now imagine if we were getting 100% of the people to participate in that. Can you imagine 100% of the people that are Christians in our area to give $39.95? What good could we do if we all decided to be a part of what Jesus might be doing in our community? So I invite you to be generous to our community. I invite you to be generous to us as well. There are so many, and you guys know this, especially if you're a business owner, there are so many ups and downs, right? And it's tough to talk about the church as a business, but there's so many ups and downs kind of coming in 2022, where we need to know that we have people partnering with us consistently, month after month. This other stuff is it's like gravy on the meatloaf. That was a weird way to explain that, but you get it. If you like gravy on your meatloaf, okay? And we want to be connected. This is the part that I've actually had the most difficult time explaining, because you don't look at me. You don't realize that God put you on this earth, that Jesus called you forward so that you could fish for people. There are people that you connect with that will never come into this building. Guess whose job it is to represent Jesus to them? It's not my job. That is your job. So we are trying to get people to actually connect with one another. And I realize this is so difficult. You know why for us? We've been waiting for the program. We have a Be Helpful program. We have a Be Generous program. Where's the Get Connected program, okay? We will get better at this, but there is no program. You are the program. And besides, everybody eats. It is that easy to connect with somebody. You connect with people. Now just be more intentional with that and actually commit to them. I have a few families in my life that I am absolutely committed to. If this building fell down tomorrow, we would connect with one another and encourage one another in Jesus. I want that for everyone. It's on you to connect. And yes, we will try to figure out ways of making this more clear and better going forward. But for now, do you understand that Jesus calls you to fish for people? That shouldn't be a burden. But the more that we view him as Lord, the more we realize that he's faithful to us, that he's defined who we are. The more we understand who he is, then we understand who we are. Freedom is found in the gospel of Jesus. So I have these questions here for you, and I'm going to give you maybe a couple of minutes. It's something that we started doing a couple of months ago, and I've found it effective for me, because oftentimes something like this we don't know what to do with, right? Well, I want to give you some time just to reflect, and here's my questions for you. Are you the outcast that Jesus has been looking for? I can't answer that for you. And if that's true, who are the outcasts that Jesus would have you look for? So I want to spend just maybe 90 seconds trying to figure out, are you the outcast that Jesus has been looking for? Can you take a step based on faith in a person, on an event that actually, we believe actually happened? So I'm going to give you about 90 seconds. And if that is true, then who are the people that we need to be fishing for? Let's think about that. Fishers of people, God, that we would look for the outcasts and sinners, God, and that we would invite them into your story, that we would represent you. And in representing you, Father, that is not a burden. We understand that we are sinners. We understand that we mess up, but because of who you are, we can come back to you. That is the gospel, and we thank you. We're so thankful for that. We love you, and we thank you. As we close kind of this portion up before we start singing again, here's what I invite you to do. Again, we're trying to create connection opportunities for you. We would love for you to read Matthew 19. Next week, we're actually going to talk through Matthew 19. You can kind of get up to date, okay? And I would like you to read that with someone this week. It could be as simple as you reading with a friend, or with your spouse, or with your kids, or with all of the above. That is how we connect with one another. We try to connect people to the story of Jesus. So I'm going to pray. We got a song here for you. Father God, we're just thankful for you. We're thankful that you are God. We're thankful that you, in fact, came to this earth, that our faith is not based on some out there idea. We hope in ideas, Father. We put our faith in you. We put our faith in the person of Jesus, which was substantiated by the event of him coming back. So, Father, we're so thankful that freedom is found in you. I pray that we would live in that freedom, and every time we move outside of the boundaries of that freedom, that you would pull us back, that we'd be reminded of one another, that we would have others in our lives that would pull us back. So, Father, Lord, do with us how you see fit, and make us fishers of people. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.